All right, I guess we'll get started. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Joe, and
Thanks to me, Kristen.
we are the Merrills. First of all, thank you so much for joining us this morning. There's a bunch of places that you could have gone to check out, and so the fact that you're here with us means the world to us. We're both teachers as well. I
I took
teach
that.
third grade,
And I teach middle school language arts.
and we're both still in the classroom, but we're also very excited because we get to learn from you guys too. And so these examples that we're going to be sharing and the ideas we're going to be sharing are all things that are from our actual classrooms. These have been tested from kindergarten all the way up through eighth grade.
Great, at least. But I think a lot of them you could still totally do with high school. If you're a high school teacher, you just might not read the same book
Yeah,
or, do quite the same process.
yeah. And so we want to make sure that you have the information for this session. So if you would like, you can go to that link, which is case sensitive, but I don't think there's any capital
Or
letters
take
there,
a
so you're
picture of
good.
it.
Or you can take a picture, or if you want, if you have your phone, you want to screenshot, or not screenshot, but grab that QR code. That'll get you the slide deck as well as all of the content that lives within this presentation. So any of the freebies, any of the template links, all that stuff is going to be there for you. So we can also come back to this at the end if we have time, in case you guys.
Yeah, what he's not telling you is he's giving you this now because we have the MO of going really quickly and running through because we just want to give you guys as many ideas as you could take away. And you're going to probably leave going, what? And so this allows you later to sit back and go through maybe the few things that you pick out that you really that kind of resonated with you, and you'll have it to share with the people you work with who weren't able to attend.
Yeah. So if you need to come back to it, just let us know in the chat. We'll put that back up later. All right. So diving right into it. Obviously, we love creation because
We
we
just
love
talked
being
about it.
creativity, right? Yeah. But why is it so important to put and emphasize creation over consumption?
Yeah, so consuming things is kind of a byproduct of being in an education system where a lot's being asked from everyone, from teachers, from the people above teachers. There's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of expectations. And so kind of the result of that is we just want we as a general collective, not like you guys, but like we tend to just have our students like learn, learn, learn. Here, I'm just gonna throw all the things out at you that I need you to learn, and I need you to take it in and take it in and take it in and take it in. And so when that happens, you tend to lose the art of creativity, right? And so this whole presentation, creation over consumption, is that when we have that balance, because there are times in a lesson where you just need to consume something, you need to learn something new, you need to take notes. But what's that balance look like? Are we consuming more or are we creating more?
Yeah. And so when you think about that, it's really important because you still have to have those creative elements within the planning period, right? Or I should say the lesson. And so having that outlet for students to be able to have the creation side is kind of going back to our keynotes where the bulk of the critical thinking and the high level thinking will take place. And so it's really important to have those options embedded within your plans for your students so that way they can go about showing those different skills.
Yeah, and when you participate in something, you're going to remember it more than when you just are actively watching, right? So a lot of times when you have a funny story and you tell someone, you're probably in that story or you did something. I don't really remember your funny stories and retell people them because I'm not involved. And so learning is the same way. When you partake in the learning, it's going to cement that learning more. And brain science shows that when you're excited about what you're doing and you enjoy it, that information actually cements faster.
Yeah, and so when you really think about how to get started with everything when it involves creation and emphasizing overconsumption, we start always by really looking at things like talents for students, right? How can we use the talents that they have as an outlet for some type of higher level thinking project, right? How can that process that goes into that idea implement their talents that go along with it? And then we've found that by placing high expectations and allowing them to be able to use those talents and skills, it really does help them maintain the thinking longer than if you were to place in front of them flashcards, for example, and have them, go over them over and over and over again. You're going to find that your students will memorize that information. I shouldn't say memorize, but they're going to retain that information quicker because they've actually put themselves into the process of learning it rather than just looking at something visually and saying that's that, that's that, that's that.
Yeah, and that high expectation when you say to someone like, I see who you are and I know what you like and I know how you learn and I'm going to value that and put that in my classroom, that already levels up what you're going to be expecting from them because we value them, right? And so if we're valuing how they learn, hopefully they internalize that as something special and they take that as they're creating, through whatever outlet or project that you do.
Yeah, so what this really does is it changes the thinking from not what would the answer be, but what could the answer be? Because now you've opened up the door for having creative outlets come in and have your students change. So where do we start with this, right? What's the easiest way to get going? And if you know anything about us, if you've ever seen our books, it all starts with relationships.
So Interactive Class was the very first book we wrote, and this idea of being interactive doesn't mean like active, like jumping up and down or like having to move, which movement is good, but interactive means having a relationship with someone, right? So that relationship as teachers is, this is my classroom, but you're learning here. These are my spaces, but how do you learn best? What do you like? You know, oh, you love Minecraft. How can I put Minecraft into my lesson? That tells the student, I see you. And then the student says, oh, you see me. I want to do really well on this because you took what I like. And then they put in the effort, right? And it's this back and forth that comes. And this comes in all sorts of ways, right? We've talked in our book, we talk about it comes in the classroom. It comes in the way you set up things. It comes in your parent relationships. But today we're going to talk about how can we build on these relationships as we build learning environments and activities specifically for our kids to participate in.
Yeah, and when like we said, when you factor in some of those different skills, like maybe they are very artistic, right? You can still use that within the learning process. Maybe they are really good at writing essays. We had talked about that in the keynote. They can level that up then even further. And so just providing the opportunities for them to be creative is where we're seeing the most benefit. Now, when you're looking at different tools here, what are the tools that we can use to try to make creation work in our classroom?
Yeah, and I was going to say to that prior slide too, like coming alongside students as you're trying to teach them certain things that they may not be good at is okay too, right? We're not saying that like if you don't have any artistic students in your class, you never do art. But it is trying to capitalize and then coming alongside them to show them that they actually can do art. But technically, as far as like ed tech is concerned, when we are looking for apps, and this is kind of like the criteria for all of these platforms that we're getting ready to just shovel at you here. What are the things that we look for when we said in our keynote, when something new comes up, what do we talk about to say whether we're going to try this or not? And some of these things are, can you customize? Is there ability to do things in different ways for different learners? Or is it like a one-shot kind of, this is what we do platform? Does it have many modes? Like, can I record? Can I draw? Can I talk into it? Can I import it? Can I export it? So can I do something somewhere else and bring it in? Like, can I draw and then bring my diorama in? Or can I create in it and then take it out and put it somewhere else? Those are kind of like
the key ones.
Like
yeah.
they're kind of like if it doesn't have it, we really don't start. But then there's also a couple other ones that are really important.
Yeah, the must-haves that we always focus on is that it has to have accessibility options. It has to be able to be cross-platform, right? So it's got to be able to work within different types of platforms, PC, mobile, whatever that looks like. You might have iPads and you might need an app instead of a website. And so if you have Chromebooks, maybe you might need to have those be able to be compatible. And so those are things that we really make sure that we focus on to make sure that all students are going to be able to benefit from it.
Yeah, and perfect example is like maybe it's not cross-platform. Maybe you can't use it on this, but you can import export. Right? So then that allows, or maybe it doesn't quite have the accessibility options you need for this student, but because you can record, draw, you can create the accessibility within that platform if it doesn't already have it. And what we've noticed is a lot of platforms may not have every single thing you want at the very beginning, but if it has the majority of these things and it's something that that teachers find, they put it in quickly, right? And so don't completely throw it off, but you have to be able to remix it and use it with the learners that you have.
So there's lots of options for you out there. And we have, we always joke whenever we share this.
There's already a missing one. Like,
because there's so much movement within these apps. But a lot of apps do creation and they do it quite well. And some apps, they only do creation. Some apps, they do consumption and maybe they only do consumption and they do those really well. And we want to be clear.
There's a place for both.
There's a place for both. And so it's important not to just say like, oh, I'm not going to use any of these consumption.
Oh yeah, I can't quiz my kids anymore. That's just consuming.
Yeah, that's not what we're getting at. But where the sweet spot is kind of in the middle there. And it's not to say that if your app is not in the middle, it's not useful for the classroom, but we just find ourselves using the apps that are in the middle probably more because those are the ones that kind of cater to what we're going through.
Well, and then you don't have to relearn things, right? So if an app is in the middle, that means that I can use it for more things, which means that I don't have to teach my kids as many new platforms, right? The more that you can stay within one platform and use it for more things, then the less learning and the more efficient you become because students aren't having to learn a new platform every day. But I've already noticed, I didn't see Brisk on here, I didn't see Snorkel. Like there's new apps coming out every day. So if you don't see one used in here, don't think that you can't. It's just like almost impossible to keep it updated.
I would need a bigger slide, I think.
That's true too.
So.
You can't take some out.
Yeah. We talked about this in our keynote, but soft skills are really important. I won't get into it too much because we didn't mention it in the keynote, but basic computing skills, being able to copy, paste, all those different types of things are really important to factor in when you're asking your students to do some of this work involving technology specifically, because it is a level up, right? Like we don't think about those things and we take them for granted, but they may not know how to do all that at first.
Yeah, this is something that my middle school team, we've talked a lot about with reading stamina, like something you can't see is very similar to like technology tools or soft skills, and how like if I have stamina and I can sit and read a book for a long time, I probably can also sit with a math problem for a long time. Or I can sit, and I hate to say it, but do dreaded state testing. Like I'm not going to get worn down because I have troubleshooted or done these things in other really fun ways, and I, as a teacher, can now use that capital that I built with my kids and like, hey, listen, you can do this. I've seen you do this, right? And it really does apply through. And so if you look at like a really classic, simple example, right? We'll take one from Canva. When you look at what the kids are doing, whether they're designing something, having that creative ability to work together and collaborate and then present, there's a lot of skills. Like, this is something that I don't think maybe teachers, you guys clearly do not have to deal with this because you've got this wonderful conference going on for you guys too. But some teachers, there are administrators who might see something like this and go, well, was that worth it? Like, was that really necessary?
How academic
was that? Was that fluffy? I hate that word fluffy. I've been told things have been fluffy all the time, but look at all the things that they actually had to do and layer in to do that assignment, from just adding things like text boxes and moving text and sizing. That's I took a design class on that in college, right? On how things should visually look. Whether I'm searching for things and searching the right words, like that's an AI skill, right? How am I prompting to get the images and the things that I need? And then on top of it, I'm collaborating with other people and I'm having to have a shared workspace and take other people's ideas into consideration. And then on top of that, I have my teacher's expectations and all those standards. And then I gotta get up and share it. And I gotta be able to verbally communicate the process of my thinking and probably most likely have some kind of time frame to do all of this within.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fire off some ideas and some lesson ideas that you can use in your classroom. And we're, like I said before, if you got those slide deck before, you're going to have all the templates. But if you don't, just let us know in the chat that you want us to put that back up and we'll make sure we do it at the end.
And a disclaimer. None of these like things that we're putting in here are bad things. So this session really is kind of like in our keynote, like the old versus the new. So you might see something like, oh, I use a page that looks a lot like that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a way to say, like, if you're looking for a simple way to take something old and make it a little bit newer, here's a platform that you maybe didn't think this type of thinking was possible. We're not throwing shade at anyone's pages or anything like that. No. All right. So the first one is, as a language arts teacher, we do a lot with vocabulary. We do a lot with definitions. We do a lot with Fryer models, and they're great. But how do I know that a student knows that before I test them? Correct? Like they've got their papers filled out, we've taken our notes, but that space in between can be a little gray. And so in this case, I used what I already had. I had my PowerPoint that I gave my presentation on, Word definition. I copied it really small. We cut them out. Those became our flashcards. I didn't have to create anything more. Got some whiteboard markers out, and classic game of Cranium. If you've ever heard of this, I created the dice on Canva, and it has two sides that are like a sculpting. You use Play-Doh. Two sides are pen, which you draw, and two sides are like the little thing in movies. I don't know what that's called. And you act. So they roll the dice, they pick a card, and in this case, these are words that went along with a historical fiction book, and it was land speculators. Probably one of the hardest words for a fourth grader to understand in like the 1800s. What was a land speculator? What were they doing? What was their job? And she drew a sold sign. And so as a teacher, I've got, yes, in this class, 27 kids all sitting around the room playing this game. And this is an instant formal assessment, right? Based on what they're drawing, based on the clues that they're acting, that the kids are trying to guess, based on the things that kids are saying, trying to guess. It was very easy for me to know which table I needed to stop at and be like, okay, listen, we need to talk about this. Do you really understand this word? Do you know what this means? It was good at the end as a teacher to be like, all of the groups really struggled with this concept or this word. I need to make sure that we do a little bit more with it. And they thought they were playing a game. Mm-hmm. Right. And so just taking it off that worksheet or taking it from the worksheet they've already done made it really a really memorable and easy, quick activity to do in the classroom.
In very low stakes, right? I mean, there's no tech even involved in it, and so
just in the making of the dice.
Yeah, it's just really kids at the core, just kind of using what's in front of them. Speaking of what kids love, emojis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, any guesses? You can drop this into the chat. See if you can figure out what some of these words are. So these are vocab words,
and
right?
science.
Yeah.
Anyone in the chat want to take a guess? This was a warm up that we did with our students after we had some words, and you could have matched them. You could have done the puzzles. Like, great, that's fine. It's also really fun to walk in and see it on the board and be like, hey, who can tell me, like, what word is this? And so these were 2 science words. They were 2 words that students constantly, I still mess them up. Every time we go to tell people, I'm like, okay, I hope I can remember which one it is. But the words are revolution and rotation, right? And so students in 4th grade were having a hard time remembering that rotation is on its axis, right? So that little arrow was giving them that. And then revolution is going around something as the earth goes around the sun, or the sun goes around the earth, or I don't know, earth goes around the sun. Yeah, earth goes around the sun. I'm not a science teacher, okay? Give me a break. But you could even take this a step further and have the kids create their own. I think in my classroom this year, I'm gonna invest the time and print out little cards with all these really fun common emojis and then lay them on the tables and have the kids come and be like, okay, I want you to build these 4 words, go. And like give them the emojis, and because there's no one way to do it, right? That's the beauty in this, is that everyone could have come up with a lot of different things and meant the same thing. But they also, I can again assess. If a kid builds a word, if I look at it and really can't figure it out, I need them to talk to me. Maybe they don't know it, or maybe I just didn't understand their visual thinking. But again, a really easy and fun way to kind of gamify something that could become very monotonous.
Yeah. Kristen loves, this is like her favorite thing to do on Canva.
Mm-hmm.
She loves the letter frames.
You watch it.
And I'm a little bit impartial with them because
wait, you teach 3rd grade next year.
Yeah, maybe I might use them more, but I'll let you talk about the letter frames and I'll talk about the ones up top.
Okay, so letter frames, I don't know if people, if you use Canva a lot, know that there's like frames, which are like shapes you can drop pictures into, but they also
elements, yeah,
and in the elements section, but these are letters that are frames. And so I have done it, you're going to see in the next slide, I've done it too with like summary, theme, main idea. There's all sorts of ways you could use it. But in this case, I was reading a chapter book with kids. This was a section they had to read in their small groups. And I needed them to come back to me and tell me what was the theme of that set of chapters. And if you can't guess, it was dangerous, because these kids are in the Everglades and they come across a poisonous snake, and then there's like a panther and an alligator. And so the kids got to go in, find their own images to drop into the word danger, and then screen record and explain to me why they picked that word. Now, not every kid picked danger. Some kids might have picked lonely. Some kids might have picked lost. But based on the word they picked, I can understand where they got the chapter. And I can tell if you read it, because if you didn't have very specific reasons as to why you picked that word, did you read? Right? And so it's a really, again, a fun way for them to create something that demonstrates an understanding of what they were asked to do.
And in the pictures above, those are actually AI generated images. You can do this in Adobe Express, or you can do this in Canva. But what the idea here was that there is a theme for the book that they're reading. If anybody wants to check a guess, maybe one of them in the chat, that just then gets entered into a prompt. And so you're going to explain the kids are going to explain what they want to create. And then when they share that, there's that justification piece that goes along with it, right? Like, why did you have a spider web that says the word friendship? Well, what book was that for? It's for Charles Webb, right? And so being able to have that explanation, I think, is key.
And one word summary. So it's like the old, like, brain theory of like doing something in a 1-word summary, which is a very hard thinking skill, and then adding in that element of design and AI with it.
Yeah.
So here again, here's the letter frames. This was as a pre-reading activity. So I read To Kill a Mockingbird in 8th grade, which is generally a year younger than most kids. And so before we even get started, I have them do a research activity on who Harper Lee was, and who she was as a person, the climate and the world she lived in, a little history on how she wrote the book, and things like that, how long it took. And so that is the page that I found that you could fill out and research and do, or you could take the same websites, and I had my kids create these word frames. And so create Harper Lee, put in pictures that you would use to describe. And if you look, some of them are like pretty clear cut. You're like, okay, gavel, because there's a court case in the book, but then some of them you look and you're like, huh, like, why'd you pick that? Like, why'd you pick that word, or a no sign, and getting to hear the kids talk about why they picked that. You could have them write about why they picked what they did, depending on the age of your learners and the level and how long you want it to take. You can even display it that way. This was really fun. And it also, this was actually the first time my kids that year used letter frames. So it was a really great, I got to teach them like how to find the elements and how to like size the frames. I got to do a little bit of a tech lesson within that class.
And for me, I like the messier versions of this right on the top. I think that it shows a little bit more charm than the actual ones that are very basic and leveled out like that. So I just like the fact that there's creation even within the actual design elements that go behind the thinking too. So that's always fun.
This is one of my favorite activities
I know it's
to
you.
share.
That's why I didn't say anything.
I love this one. Okay, so again, very similar vocabulary, right? Those things that we teach all the time, every day, that you come home and you're like, if I have to do this one more time, I'm gonna like, lose it because I'm done with it. So in this case, you could do the simple like roll the dice, spin the paper clip, rhyme the word, write the word, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in this case, we had been reading a set of words that went with our unit. The kids had done enough with them, and so I gave one class period, and I think I gave them the template, like the little 4x4 square in Canva, and I said, okay, we have 12 words. You need to do at least 5, and I want you to create. I don't even know if I came up with a name with them, like word squares, or I want 5 words that are associated with that word. I don't want the definition. I'm big into like word associations, things that when I see that picture and I see those other things, I know what the word might be, right? So power, being superior, cruel, unkind, a crown. That's tyrannical, right? Like that's having a tyranny over someone. So the kids created them, and then what I did is I put them in Padlet. So the kids in here, these soft skills, they created the images, they downloaded the images, they upload them to the correct column. So at the end of the lesson, I had all of my words, tyrannical, employ, erratic, all the words, and I had all the images that the different kids had picked. So there's my lesson. There's my grade. Did Bryson did he get 5 words? Did his words match? But then as I started looking at them, I was like, these are some really good words. Like some of these are really good. And so Padlet allows me to just download them right there. And it took me maybe 15 minutes tops to download the ones I really liked. And then what did I do? I dropped them into a booklet. Just their images that they created. And I did the same thing. Which word matches the image? Which word matches the image? The kids came in the next day and I was like, hey, we're starting with a warm-up review. We're going to play a game. And they jumped in and it was their own pictures. They lost it. I mean, it's really hard to get 8th graders excited about something. They were so excited because 1, they didn't know whose was whose. 2, they want to beat each other, right? Because you can like go head to head. 3, every once in a while they get to one that was theirs and they realize my work was good enough for my teacher to put on here. And I got a free answer because I know it's mine, right? And then there were some kids who I tried really hard to have one of everybody's, like, and for the most part I did. But there were some kids whose maybe theirs didn't all get picked. And that's a very quiet, subtle way for me to let that child know, like, hey, like we need to talk, we need to go through. Maybe it's just you rush through it, maybe you don't understand it. It was a hit. I wish I could have done it more, just towards the end of the year. But it was a really, really, and then what did they do? Of course, 8th graders, can you put this online so like we can play at home? Yeah, sure. Go for it. Knock yourself out.
I think anytime that you can make students the creators of the content, you've got it gold, right? Because that, like you mentioned, it really does just make them in charge of what is behind the scenes of their learning, right? And so what an extraordinary assessment piece too, right? Not only did they develop all that, right? But then you as the educator took what they learned and created the assessment for it. So not only do they feel seen and valued, but it also is leveling it up for everybody else. And so it's a great way.
And look, it gives you data, right? So if you're a data-driven person, you could see how they fared with everyone else's images. But it's just, there's validity, right? You're giving value to what they did. And if you don't make their work authentic and give value, they're going to stop working hard for you because they're going to realize no one's going to see it. No one's going to use it. It's that classic, I could just turn in the teacher's office, I'm going to look, I can write whatever I want kind of mentality. And so it was a really simple, easy way for me. I didn't have to spend hours and hours to make it work.
Yeah. One of our new apps that we're kind of I shouldn't say kind of excited about. We're very excited. Is Adobe Podcast. Now, if you have Adobe for Education, this is free. If you don't have Adobe for Education, Google it, get it.
Sign up for it. It's free.
So this app is a side app from the Adobe suite. And what this does is it allows students and even an educator to create a podcast. It's very, very basic, but the actual product itself is very high quality. To give you an idea of how this looks, when kids go on, what they do is they can collaborate. They can even be in different locations. You can share a link with someone to collaborate. They can log on, they can record. And let's say, for example, that maybe they're using a piece of writing or they're doing some research. They can create a podcast on that, but maybe they're recording and one of their friends messes up as they're recording, right?
Yeah, like a person, right?
They say the word like or a little bit too much. Guess what? With Adobe Podcast, you just can click on those words, delete them, and it will remove them from the actual podcast itself. So that alone is phenomenal.
You don't have to like drag and split and do all the highlighting. It's literally like click that word out, and it takes all of the sound with it.
Yeah, and what's neat about it too is that it also has some of the Adobe elements built inside of it. So for example, if you wanted background music, you can actually take that and upload that behind the actual audio of you speaking, or if you want that to be in the forefront. So there's layers that are actually in the podcasting as well. And it's easy to share, right? You download the MP3 file, and then you can share that broadly through Padlet or Wakelet.
Yeah, you get like a Padlet of all your class podcasts, and then you can even take it a step further. They could design their like cover to their podcast. This is something that I really want to do with my middle schoolers this year with like books and novels and book groups and genres. I can't even decide like how I want to do it, but it would be something that I think kids could really learn and do pretty efficiently.
And you might want to think of, if you are thinking like, oh, I could use this idea. Think about if you want to repeat this idea. I would challenge you to, if you want to have your students doing this more than once, maybe you want to provide a space where they could do episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, so on and so forth. Maybe that's a Wakelet or a Padlet wall, which we'll share in a second, where maybe they're just adding content to a column. So think about that as you get.
It could be done in a media center. It could be done as a genius hour or gifted learner projects. There's so many different ways that I think you could be doing it in science class. I'm sorry, but there's so many different ways this platform. If I was an administrator, I think this would be the thing I'd want to train my whole staff on this year.
Yeah, and this auto saves too. So if you're working with little kids that forget to save it, they've got you covered there too. All right, you've heard us talk about it, but Padlet is one of our favorite go-to apps. And the reason why we love Padlet so much is because it does a lot of those things that we talked about earlier well. It has the accessibility, it has the collaboration, it has the video and editing, it has all those things built inside of it. It's kind of like a one-stop shop.
And it's an oldie.
It's
one of the very first apps. You came back to it.
Oh.
It's one of the very first apps that we started using. And then just like the forefront of apps, sunsetting or going away, they kind of like stepped up and took in some of the things that we've lost through other platforms. And like you said, like you can record video, you can upload video, you can write, you can speak. It'll speak to you. You can do AI image generating. You can share links out. You can freeze it. You can send it to parents. There's so many things you can do. This is one of the apps we're going to talk about in our lunch hour because I think people don't understand. And the example from our keynote of like taking something and completely redefining it was done in Padlet.
Yeah. So looking at this activity that we're focusing on the slides. So this is just a very basic worksheet, right? There's nothing wrong with this. You can get an assessment out of this if the students were able to fill this out. But if students had the chance to put some voice behind that and explain why they chose what they did, you as the educators are going to get way more of an understanding into their thinking, as opposed to just giving out a worksheet and saying like, what's the answer, right? So the justification that goes behind their thinking, right or wrong, is going to be truly telling. And so that's why we love Padlet, because it allows students to be able to go on and use the video camera to tell their story. Now, I will say, I'm not sure if your district blocks them or not, but some of the districts that we go to don't. But there are filters that are built into Padlet that allow you to turn into different types of characters, different types of scenes. So
my middle schoolers eat this up. Love this.
The reason why we like them, though, is because sometimes we have those shy and reluctant kids that don't want to be on camera. And so what this allows them to do, it allows them to place one of those over their face and still be able to share their voice, because their voice is truly the important part. We want to hear what they're saying. And so this gives them that confidence to not be so worried about how they look like on camera, but still be able to share that thinking and being able to go up to the next level.
And if you're one of those teachers that's like, absolutely not, you can turn it off.
Oh, yes.
There's so much that the teacher has control over that you can take it off if you don't like it.
And the best part about all of this is, if you were a Microsoft Flip or Flipgrid user, we were very sad when that app went down. But this really did just jump right in and take over, because it also creates a threaded response layer too. So like if you have a video up that you want to share, students can then create that web of discussion and it'll just keep it organized and threaded off to the side there. When it comes to books and picture books, we love incorporating those into our lessons. Obviously, I'm just like you guys do. This particular example is using the book Enemy Pie and the theme that went kind of behind that. And so if you're not familiar with that book, basically it's just a student who has a new person into the neighborhood and they want to become, they end up becoming friends with them. And so how does that look like in the classroom? And so the ultimate goal is to be able to provide an outlet for the students to be able to do that.
Well, and what I like about this is actually this lesson revolves around AI image generation. And so we as teachers, especially this summer, we have heard a lot of teachers saying, yes, I love this and I love AI, but I got to teach my kids how to use it correctly. We have to be, have that digital citizenship. And so something like this, maybe you're reading any kind of picture book, right? In this case, it was Enemy Pie. And I'm reading my standards and I'm doing my thing. And then I say, okay, let's extend our thinking if we were to be able to create some really cool dessert or item, what would it be? Because they're probably going to come with like popcorn pizza, which is not a real thing. You can't Google it, right? But they could go to Padlet or anywhere, any platform that has AI generation, Canva, Adobe, and create it, right? And then they could talk about it. I do this with, surprisingly, Midsummer Night's Dream and Shakespeare. At the end with my 7th graders, I say, create me some kind of food representative to either a theme or a character in Shakespeare's play. And the stuff they come up with, like periwinkled ice cream with pistachio, like you're not going to find it, but AI can. And it's a great way to segment into how to prompt AI and how to create images using AI in a safe space, but that is also academic and actually ties to something they're doing.
Yeah, and so here you can see how that AI worked itself out, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Popcorn pizza sounds interesting. I don't know. Ice cream sundae sandwich. I think I'm more likely to try that one. I don't know.
You love ice cream.
So it was just a lot of fun, and it was a way for kids to get their toes into using AI appropriately in the right way. So
yeah, and they feel so accomplished after it, right? And they feel confident and they feel creative. And again, I like no one person's thing had to look the same.
Right.
Like we all had the same end goal. And when you're starting with your end in mind, there's a lot of possibilities. And the same thing with here. This is really funny because I just found this as I was unpacking my boxes from when I taught 4th grade and they're in 3rd grade now. I found my leftover materials and I put them on the side of my desk thinking, I wonder if Joe would want these for his 3rd graders. So as we talked about in the keynote, the part of creativity that we feel like we don't sit on long enough is the thinking part. And so in 4th grade, we did lots of read alouds. And a lot of times we would read books that maybe I had to read more out loud because of the level of the book or how fast I wanted to get through it. And I noticed that our students, their listening skills are probably pretty weak comparatively to the other things they can do. And I thought that this was a great idea, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna give everybody a note card and I want you to draw out what you're thinking, kind of like that little 3-year-old's picture of what you're thinking as I'm reading. And I did it that first day after lunch or before lunch or 10 minutes. And I finished and I walk around and no one drew anything. No one drew anything. And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I have a very high class of kids. Like, how did no one draw anything? And when I talked to them, they all knew what happened. And I realized they were scared. They were scared to draw their thoughts out on paper because they didn't know if it would be right. They didn't know if what they were thinking could be communicated. So then I started doing this every day. And I said, okay, you know what? Don't put your names on it. But when you get to the point where you've drawn something that you are proud of that represents our story, we're going to tape it to the wall. And then what we started doing is we had different sections on our wall, you can't see it here, that would go with like different parts of the book. And then as one kid would put it up or another kid, then like we'd get to days where like all the kids wanted to put it up. And you're like, oh, okay, great. And then I reached out to a good friend of ours, Manuel Herrera, who's like in the sketchnote world. And I said, I need you to help me design something. Help me design something. I made little journals and the kids could use them when we were reading. Sometimes I'd pull them out in science class. Can I draw like what we're going to read today in our chapter? Can I take it home and draw? And really opened the idea of visualizing your thinking in whatever way works for you. Like if mine was on there, it wouldn't have been pictures. It'd probably been words or doodles, right? But sketchnoting is something that I think oftentimes people are saying, what's the value? What are you learning? And there's so much to visually work through and process that something as simple as like note cards, paint, or tape, and the ability to draw can be really impactful.
Yeah. I love this lesson because I feel like this one is an easy way to get into Canva. So this was one that you did that involved using vocabulary. Or was it text features? I can't recall.
This was text features, but this was not at the beginning of the year. This was like one of those standards in 4th grade where you teach text features over and over, and you also teach text structure. And it's easy for the kids to say, oh yeah, bold, heading, italics. But when you actually ask them to use it, I realized that they had no idea really how to apply those things that they had consumed and memorized. And so this, if you could believe it, is the week before state testing. We did a giant unit on Flora's lava, and all of our math and all of our reading review for these big giant tests was around Flora's lava, volcanoes. And so this was the week after the reading test. I still needed to do things academic with my kids as they prepared for the math. And so we did research on volcanoes, took the whole week. I didn't know there's all types of volcanoes, how they erupt. So if you can see, those are text structures, right? There's a how-to, there's a chronological, there's a classification. So we did all this research and then they picked one and they had to create an infographic using the specific text features that went. So if you're telling me the parts of a volcano, I'm going to need labels. But if you're going to tell me how it erupts, I need keywords. The first day we did this, it was an absolute disaster. So when we talked in our keynote about like failure, absolute failure, because I realized my kids had never been asked to do this and didn't understand what kinds of text features needed to go with their text structure, and realized that I hadn't maybe taught it as best I could have because they knew the things, but by the end, they were so cool. And if you go into Canva, they do have tons of infographics. I, as a teacher, tried to pick out a bunch that I could have them start with, depending on what they wanted to do. And then they took it from there. And then they were so excited. They asked me to print them, and I never print stuff off like that. But I ended up printing them and laminating them for them. And there's actually a QR code in the back where they got to talk about what they did and how they designed it. So it's a really neat kind of end of the year, and it taught me way more about what my students knew than the paper that they just filled out.
And you could print them out.
I could print them out.
So yeah. Microsoft MakeCode. Oops, sorry, I forgot that was on there. Microsoft MakeCode, is a free app that allows students to create basically like 8-bit video games. And so if you think back to like your Game Boys, those types of games.
Oh, nostalgic.
Yeah.
Some of it's coming back with Roblox too.
Some of it is coming back. But what's cool about this is that the kids are coding it all, but they can do a little bit of retelling here, right? So maybe they are retelling a part of a story and they can then code that. And they're designing everything from they call them sprites, but they're characters, to the background, to the setting. All that stuff is all designed by the students. I don't know if the sound's going to come through, but I'm going to go back a slide so you guys can see. Even the background music is actually designed by the students. You can see that there's some code that goes there. And if you can't hear it, I apologize, but it kind of goes through. But everything is designed by the students. So again, going back to that processing and really giving them time to be able to think through each individual detail of their game is really, really powerful, because maybe it's a suspenseful moment and they want to have that suspenseful music. Maybe it's a part where it's an epic finale and they want to change that. And so
all of that is part of design, but as a reader too, like you should be feeling those things in your game as you're feeling them in your book. Like there's when you talk about critical level of thinking, it's so much higher than what you would normally do on paper.
Yeah, and the best part about this is all free, right? You can use this app for free. Your students can use it for free. And getting it and downloading it is easy too. All it is a shared link, or you can just actually like download the file. And it's just like code.org. If you've ever used code.org, right? You can download those projects, drop them into Padlet, and then you have a central location that students can play each other's games.
I was gonna say, did that look familiar? Right? Like it's a class arcade. I mean, like now there's that authenticity, right? Now not only did I know what I needed to create and did and fulfilled it for my teacher, but now my work is getting shared to parents. You could share this with your class and be like, look what we designed this unit, and go and play each other's games. And now they're getting a chance to play the game that their child's created or other kids have created at home and talk about their learning even more.
The best part about Padlet too is that you can share a whole board. So let's say I want to share that whole screen. I can share that whole screen. If I want to just share Kristen's response, I can share just Kristen's response. If I want to share the whole column, I can share just one column. So it really is up to the educator. You've got complete control there about how much you want to be able to share out. But again, the ability to be able to do so, that lets our students create for a broader audience than just within the classroom. And our students then see the value in their products. And so they want to make sure they're going above and beyond.
And speaking of game creation, there's another app that does game creation. This one is paid for, which is why some people may not know it exists. If you've ever played Gimkit, I love just good old Gimkit, Bookit, they're Kahoot, right? Challenging each other, knocking each other out. But there's a whole level that can be used more on the assessment side called Gimkit Creative.
Yeah, Game Kit Creative, they're same thing. They're designing those video games. Each one of those little like colored squares that you see in the character walk by there, those are questions. And if you are using this as an assessment piece, the kids would go in, they would create the questions, and then they also have to come up with the answers for the questions. So if they don't know the answer to the question, then clearly they don't understand the
Or if
content.
they're only answering one kind of question, then you can kind of gauge. Or maybe they're going too far and like, bringing things in that they've learned somewhere else. It's a nice way to kind of see where everyone is.
Yeah, and let's be real, no one's going to want to play their game if it's got a bunch of wrong answers in it. So as the educator, you can see this, they can share it, they can play with the whole class, they can play with just a few friends. And I have to say, we've done this in classes, and there's no more brutal honesty that comes out of a kid than your game's not working the right way, bro. And so they have to go in and they have to fix it. So it's a great assessment piece, and it's a great way to have students kind of bring in that gamification into their learning as well.
So templates. Templates are great. Templates are a great way when you want to do something creative. You want students to demonstrate an understanding of their learning, and you don't want to spend more than a class period to do it. So again, this is in middle school. Actually, I lied. This is a fourth grade lesson. I've done it with my middle schoolers, reading a novel where I needed to assess where my students were because we had a change in setting and we had a change in character situation. And so I asked them to create a lock screen, and I wanted them to create a lock screen for one of these two characters. And I told them I should be able to tell who the character is by looking at it, and I should be able to understand why you put the things in based on where they are. So the book takes place during the Holocaust. Obviously, you can see the division of one of the children is in hiding, one's trying to hide the other. And so it was wonderful. And I gave them 30, 40 minutes to do it, and they all were able to do it, download it, send it to me, quick assessment. It also gives them a little bit more freedom to push all the buttons and decorate it and do all those things. But because it's within one of those elements, this is one of those frames and elements, everything kind of snaps in, so it doesn't take quite so long.
Yeah. And Kristen also loves this game.
I haven't played yet today. So I can't tell you if I've gotten it or not, but he makes fun of me because I love playing the New York Times Connections. And it's something that I do with my my homeroom kids in middle school. I'll often open it up, and when they come in the morning, they have to try to guess the connection. Obviously, it's higher level thinking. I don't always solve the connections every day, but this website allows you to make your own connections game. And let's be real, we also have Chat GPT. So I could go into chat and say, hey, listen, these are my keywords, and this is my topic I'm learning about in science class. Here's some vocabulary. Here's the process that we're learning about. Create me a 16 square block for connections. It'll probably do a pretty good job, give you the words. You go in, you type it in here, you generate the puzzle, and now you have an actual live web-based connections game that runs just like the real one on your content. Yeah. I think it's super cool. I'm going to try to do it this year as it gets to know me. I'm going to try to do some that are about me and who I am, and see if the kids can figure out
about the kids
four things. Well, yeah, but I mean for me to get them talking with each other, what they think about me, because I have a weird build up in middle school too, where you have some kids that you've seen and and then some kids that are new. And so the kids that know me will think they know it, but maybe they don't. So that's just one way I'm going to try. But I think it's really cool because it can be completely adapted to whatever you're teaching.
Yeah. One of the things that we find that's most challenging for our students is probably writing, especially with the younger kids, right? Finding that momentum to want to be able to write. And so this was a way for our students to get more involved in that process. And so this was an actual narrative writing piece that the kids had created and giving them that creative outlet, right? What kid doesn't love video games? There's not very many that don't. And so this example takes what they created in their writing, and then it brings that piece into what could be a real life video game, in this case, a Nintendo Switch game. And so it's also used as an assessment piece, right? The student is got to put the character on there, right? They got to have a setting, maybe. There's got to be some type of keywords, right? And this was a lot of fun because what this does is it gives the kids writing life. And so they're able to then bring it into this template, and they're able to share this then on places like Padlet. Now, this was actually created in Canva. You could do this in other places, but the reason why I did it in Canva was because I'm going to give you guys a template right here in case you don't have it. The reason why I had them do this in Canva was because this actually was doing a little bit of double dipping. I wanted to teach them about layering in Canva. And so, for example, the Nintendo Switch icon, right? And the E for everyone. I told them that the Nintendo Switch icon had to be on the top of the design because that way you knew that it was for a Nintendo Switch game. And that E for everyone, I told them the FBI said that that had to be on there. And so you have to make sure that that's on there. The FBI was going to be coming for them. So it's just a fun way to get them engaged in the actual process. That QR code right there, if you don't grab it now, it is in the slide deck that we shared with you in the beginning.
And you left out the most important part. What age were the kids that were doing this?
This was first grade.
Yeah, I always think that's really important to understand too. Like these are first graders, and so even the AI generation and thing can be brought down to an appropriate level, but first grade.
Yeah, because they're really using what they've already written about, right? So they're already doing the hard work and they've already got that done. So
good scaffold.
It's just a good way to do it. This is another app. It's called Adobe Character Animator. This is a free app, but it does involve you having to download the app to the device. So you can't use it on the web. But what's really cool about this app is that it uses the device's camera and microphone and mimics it. And so you can see I'm kind of doing some movements there.
Boring movements.
You give me such a hard time about it.
Yeah, so much fun. This is all I did. I give you a hard time every time.
And so what it does is it allows you to animate the character that you've selected. Now, there's tons of characters you can choose from. I don't know why somebody would have chose me as a robber.
I don't know.
Might have been somebody else behind the scenes there. But what it does then is it allows you to then use your voice to animate the other character's voice. Now, there is a starter version of this, and there's a level up version of this. The level up version of this is not what you're seeing here. This is the starter. The level up allows you to move the hands full animation.
Yeah, and so think about it, like you're doing character traits and you're like, maybe the character's angry. Like you should be talking like you're angry, right? Like they can still fill this out ahead of time for you to see, but the ability to kind of bring it through. This reminds me of ChatterPix, which used to be on an iPad, where it allowed the voice of anything to kind of go through and mimic what they were saying.
Yeah. Now, I am a musician, so I have a love and hate relationship with this particular app, Suno. But what this does is it allows you to create music that you can either add lyrics onto or you can just keep as instrumental. And what we've seen with this is a great way to then have your class start with the lyrics, make the lyrics themselves, and add them into this app. And then they can have a whole song for it.
You can do whatever you want. You could create the song ahead of time and cut out all the, like this is the rock cycle, cut out all this, like the verses and tell them to order them. What's the order that this would go in? Or like which cycle will lead into the next cycle? They could write their own. You could write it ahead of time and teach it to them and have them sing it, right? It doesn't have to be long. It could be just an 8-line verse. My son learned all of his science through his teacher because she sang songs. So the way you use this platform really could be different, but it's just a way to bring music into the classroom.
This is a free and paid app. The free version gets you a limit of like 3 or 4 generations, so just be careful. So you want to make sure you're not generating too many of them. All right, almost finished here. So Book Creator is our next favorite app that we love to talk about. Book Creator does what it says. It does create books, it does do way more than that too. And so I think a lot of times at face value, we look at it and we're like, oh, we're just making books in it. You can do so much more than that. But again, the hard work doesn't have to start with the technology. You might want to have that on paper and pencil. And so we find that with the younger kids, having them do that on paper and pencil so they can visualize what that looks like on the tech side really does help. And so the final product is going to be way better because they've already done the legwork.
Yeah, you could do your research through Padlet or, other apps that allow you to research. You put it down your paper, right? There's that processing, that time to be creative. And then you can go and actually build the book in Book Creator. A lot of people are not aware that Canva actually has an embed right into Book Creator.
And so does Adobe.
So if your kids are already used to building in those platforms, they do not have to start. You can totally start from a scratch whiteboard and write and draw and text box and layer. But if you, again, want to be efficient or your kids aren't feeling as creative, they can design within the platform that it opens right up in, and they design and it drops it right back in. And so that's something for some of these books, when you're looking at, these are first grade children creating books, but they're using the help of like an Adobe or a Canva. They're not quite to the point like maybe in 8th grade where you would design from scratch.
Right. And it doesn't just have to be there. I mean, you can do more of an experience, right? You can do a choose your own adventure in Book Creator, right? Where you have things hyperlinks. And so when you click to certain choices within the book, it's going to take them to those pages. So, you don't have to limit yourself to just thinking like, oh, it's just a book and I'm going page to page to page. You can really get creative, no pun intended, with the thought process.
And no matter what kind of book you create, you can share it out, right? So it has a link that you can then share out with the parents or share it with your school or display in the media center so that their work is authentically being reviewed.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of ideas on our website and our blog that if you're interested in learning more about, we're happy to share those with you guys. So if you missed the slide deck before, just let me know in the chat and I'll put that information back up for you. But you can also just reach out to us on our socials at the Merrills EDU, 2 R's and 2 L's, because
there's 2 of us.
She hates it when I do that. But also on our website, you can find a lot of these resources that are available to you. We've also got some books, the interactive class, and also our newest one, which is Creation in a World of AI. And so thank you guys for spending a part of your morning with us. We so appreciate it. Please let us know how you're using these ideas. We'd love to learn more from you all. Sure. And yeah, it would be great to hear from you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All that good information the teachers can now take back to their classrooms and start being creative with their kiddos.
Thank you, Deborah. We appreciate it.
Someone's asking to share the presentation again. Did you share the slides?
Sure. Yeah, we can share it again.
We can definitely do that for you. Give me 1 sec here.
I guess there's probably a link I could probably copy and paste too, right?
Oh yeah, it's okay. I mean, I always tell people just to take a picture of it. Then you have the link, then you have the thing to scan, because it's hard to gather all your resources together.
There you go. You should be able to see it now.
That work? Let's see.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that's going to give you all the templates and everything too. So if you go to that, that's probably the best bet rather than trying to figure out where all the scanned QR codes are. If you just go to that main QR code and that main link, that's going to give you all the information and show us how to get a hold of us too. So
thank you for sharing that again. So everybody
absolutely.
We're moderating 2 sessions, so I'm trying to listen to both and get both. It's a little challenging. My older brain is just not as fast as it once was.
I can understand. That is extremely challenging.
Well, we aren't helping by throwing as many ideas in as possible. But we also wanted to make sure we gave them time to do their evaluation and maybe post on social media, do all the things that you guys have going on today as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. Please, I put the link to the survey in the chat, so please take time to fill that out. And I think, do you all have a little break now until the lunch and learn, or do you have another session right away? I can't remember now the lineup.
Lunch and learn will be our next face-to-face.
Awesome.
Yes.
So everybody come back for our lunch and learn. Hear some more from the Merrills. Lots and lots of great ideas. I've seen you live and in person at conferences and appreciate everything that you're sharing with us.
Well, we're just so glad to be. I mean, Texas is so full of amazing educators.
Yeah, it always fills our cup.
Yeah, and this is right. I mean, we're literally going back to school as you guys are too. And so this is a really timely conference because I feel like it brings us all together, gives us that charge up that we need to get into the new year. So thank you all for joining us this morning. We so appreciate it. And we're excited because we get to kind of take it easy and do a whole lunch and learn thing with you guys. And we
have our apps in mind that we want to talk about and stuff too, but we also love reading through the chat. And so when we get on, if there's an app that people want to learn more about, we're totally willing to change it and go to that one. We love participation in sessions. And I know some people don't want to do that, but the lunch and learn for us, that's what we're really hoping it'll be, is that we can walk you through a platform where you can be hey, okay, show me this, or how does this work? And then our other session we have is a complete demo. So a demo through session.
If there was something that you saw in this session, or maybe the keynote that you're like, how did you do that? Let us know in the chat and we're going to show you how to do it during that time.